Well, I think it's a war movie with ultimately a very simple story that it tells. I mean, it's not a war movie about you must make this objective. You have to take this hill. You have to destroy this bunker. It's nothing like that. It's about you have to find this guy and send him home. So ultimately it's about saving one guy's life, so he can go home to his mom. That's a very simple story to be told against a huge backdrop, which makes it, I think, even more emotional than it would be normally. Well, I think it leads the audience into considering how precious human life is, and sometimes what its cost is. This is an emotionally draining movie. It starts off in a very hard, kind of realistic, gripping, and grim fashion, but getting through that first 25 or 26 minutes of the film, you don't ever want to see anybody get killed again, no matter what their uniform is, no matter what they stand for, because the carnage is just, it's too hard to fathom. But by getting through that barrier, I think you now have like a new brand of vision to what it really means to be alive and how precious that is. And so that the emotional journey you go off on, is one of that takes into account the great historical cost, the great human cost of such a thing as the Normandy invasion of World War II. The old war movies used to just take into account the victory, knowing deep in our hearts and deep in our minds that, yeah, people got killed, but all they did was celebrate the fact that we won and purposefully shunted away the real sacrifice, the real cost of what it took in order to get there. And we don't do that in this movie. And I think because of that, at the end of it, I think that you're thinking about things that you haven't ever really thought about before in regards to what is supposed to be a pretty familiar story, World War II, Sam and a Guy. It should be a pretty standard thing, and it's just the opposite. Well, we as professionals, we know this movie is made in like 3-minute increments, and we know where all the trucks are. We see them setting up everything as we go about it. But we don't honestly know what the emotional toll is going to be once it's all put together. We hope all of this stuff is going to put together, and it's not only is it going to make some cohesive sense, but it's actually going to tell an emotional story. When you're there and you're seeing, they've built the bunkers, and there's the ships in the ocean, and here's the entrails that are being thrown in the water, and here's the disfigured bodies that they're arranging. It's this surrealistic kind of terror that you see being set up before you, that it's kind of hard to take. I mean, it's not, I remember going back up after the very first shot that I was in, which was in the landing craft, and 3 rows of guys just got blown to bits before my very eyes, and I knew it was fake. I knew it was only in a movie, but I had like blood, and I had guts all over me, and I went up and told the guys, you're not going to believe the way hold on to your hats, fellas, because this isn't going to be a standard movie-making experience. It was horrifying sometimes, and deafeningly loud. When we shot this stuff with all the pyrotechnics going off, you couldn't think. It was chaos, and yet we knew it was fake because the camera's right there, or right there, as the case may be. Well, yeah, I mean the burdens of command are pretty bad anyway, but when human lives are potentially lost by your decision making, yeah, it's a tough. You're stretched to you're stretched to the breaking point all the time. The fact that you could, as a commanding officer, make the wrong decision and end up inadvertently getting 20 of your guys killed, or 200 of your guys killed, or just 2 of your guys killed. I don't know how you live under that kind of stress. I don't know how you combat that type of worry. And yet that was day in and day out an absolute fact of the life of a guy like Captain John Miller in the 2nd Rangers. How do you? He has all sorts of self-defense mechanisms in place. I mean, he's a bit of a mystery. He's not really open to his men. They don't know anything about him, and it has to be that way because if he got close to somebody and lost them, it made it 5 times worse than it would be if they were just a name and a number. But even then, it's a horrifying thing. Well, I think we both did. I think we were both worried that because we had never made a movie together, that it was going to be a strain on the friendship that we've developed over the course of 5 or 6 years. But we took care of that very quickly with a conversation of saying, look, okay, now we make the movie. please say anything to me that you would normally say. Don't try to not hurt my feelings. Don't try to make it easier for me. We're making a movie here. Therefore, we have to be brutally honest about what we feel about what we can do in a scene or what has to be demanded of us. And we were able to do that. I have to tell you that, like any actor in the world, I want to be in a Steven Spielberg movie, and I want to be good in a Steven Spielberg movie. I want Steven Spielberg to think I'm a good actor. I want Steven Spielberg to want to work with me again. So therefore, like everybody else in the ensemble on this thing, we felt lucky and responsible in working with Steven. And Steven obviously is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, and he just happens to be of our generation as well. No, not really. I'm going to have the hubris to assume that the audience will follow me anywhere. And we'll find out later on if they do or not. But if you sit around and think, well, gosh, what are the audience going to think of me like this? Will they like me? Will they not like me? If you think about that way, well, then you're just going to be making fake movies one right after another, and you'll just be treating the audience as though they're not smart. They're very smart, and they want to see the truth up there. And they don't want to see you lie, so they don't want to see you trying to pretend to be somebody when you have no real clue as to who that person is. But if you pretend to be somebody and you've done the work and you've got the emotion behind you and you have it backed up, they'll follow you wherever you go. At least that's what I think. That's what I hope. I think I owe them the absolute best work that we have. They are coming in, having made the choice to pay $7.50 or whatever it is. They're paying their hard-earned money to come in. And they don't just want to be entertained, they also want to be enthralled, and they want to be transported to some of the place. That's the great power of the cinema. And I hope they get their money's worth every time they walk into a movie that I'm in.